I never thought I'd be the one getting kicked out of the house I was paying for. But here I am, 34, an engineer, living in a rented apartment in Austin, and just last month I got locked out of my childhood home in San Marcos with nothing more than a 3-line text message. My name's Carla Mendez, and if you've ever wondered how long it takes for a family to pretend you don't exist, it's exactly 2 years and $104,000 in mortgage payments. Let me back up a bit. The house wasn't always a war zone. My grandparents built it back in the 70s, a modest 3-bedroom ranch with a creaky porch and a fig tree out back. It wasn't much, but it was where we gathered for Christmas tamales and Sunday football. When my grandparents passed, they left it to my parents, with the unspoken understanding that it would stay in the family. For all of us. At least that's what I believed. I have one younger sister, Lola. She's always been the kind of person who could light up a room and burn it down in the same breath. Growing up, if I got an A, my parents said, "Good, that's expected." If Lola passed with a C-, it was a parade and pancakes. I learned early not to expect much attention unless something broke. Still, I love that house. So when 2 years ago my parents told me they were behind on payments and risked losing it, I didn't hesitate. Their business had gone under, and they had drained their savings trying to help Lola open a nail salon that she shut down after 4 months. I told them I'd take over the $4,300 mortgage until they could get back on their feet. No contract, no promises. Just my word and my wallet. To afford it, I stopped contributing to my 401k, gave up plans to buy my own place, and took on extra freelance work. I even canceled a trip to Montana with my boyfriend Marcus. "It's just a few years," I told him. "It's the right thing to do." But it didn't feel right every Sunday when I drove an hour to San Marcos for family dinners and sat through yet another evening of Lola's drama stealing the spotlight. Whether it was her latest bad boyfriend or her car getting towed, she was always the headline. Meanwhile, my work wins, the big bridge project I led, the promotion I earned, barely registered with anyone. Marcus started calling those Sundays emotional decline days. He wasn't wrong. The red flags showed up slowly. My parents started whispering behind closed doors. Lola came over more often, sometimes staying overnight. I'd walk into a room and they'd all go quiet. But I kept telling myself I was imagining things, that they were grateful in their own way. Then came the text. It was a Thursday morning, just as I was pouring coffee before heading to a site meeting. The message from my mom read, "We've changed the locks in the gate code. Please don't come by. Lola said you were circling the house last night and it made us uncomfortable." I stood there, phone in one hand, mug in the other, heart pounding. I hadn't even been in San Marcos that week. I stared at the screen, rereading every word. No explanation. No thank you. No apology. Just a lockout notice and a lie. I replied only once. "Understood. Very smart. But I think you overlooked one thing." I didn't explain what that one thing was. I didn't need to, because that morning something in me snapped. Not in rage, but in clarity. They thought they'd taken everything from me. They were wrong. The minute I sent that message, "Understood. Very smart. But I think you overlooked one thing." I felt something settle in my chest. Not peace. Not anger either. Just clarity. They'd made their choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. I didn't go to work that day. I called in sick, shut off my phone, and just sat there at my tiny kitchen table with a legal pad and a calculator. 2 years, 24 payments, $4,300 each month. That's over $100,000. $100,000 for a house I couldn't even set foot in. I stared at the total for a long time before I started writing underneath it. Every trip I canceled, every overtime shift I took, every dinner I skipped. I even noted the year I put off freezing my eggs because I couldn't afford the procedure and the mortgage at the same time. You know what I realized? I hadn't just paid for the house. I'd bled for it. Quietly. And they'd locked me out with a lie. I called my bank. I told them to cancel the auto payment. When they asked why, I said, "Because I'm not paying for a home I'm banned from." The woman on the line went silent. Then she said softly, "I hope things get better for you." I laughed. It was the first time I had laughed in days. Then the silence started. 3 days, no calls, no texts, no fake apologies. I knew exactly what was happening. They thought I was sulking and would eventually cave. That I'd show up with flowers and a check, desperate to be let back in. They didn't know me at all. The 4th day, the messages started. First one was a voicemail from Lola. "What the hell, Carla?" The bank called about a missed payment. "You're seriously gonna let this place go into foreclosure?" "Grow up." Then Dad. "This is unacceptable. You made a commitment to help. Call your mother right now." And finally, the cherry on top. A text from Mom. "Sweetheart, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We only changed the locks because there were reports of break-ins nearby. We'll give you the new code if that's what this is about. But please call us. The mortgage is due again." No apology. No ownership. Just lies layered on top of more lies. I ignored every message. Instead, I talked to my therapist, then to a real estate attorney. The same day, I printed out every transaction showing I'd paid the mortgage, and I printed their text about changing the locks and not trusting me. I wanted to be ready for whatever came next. But the worst part wasn't the money, or even the betrayal. It was what happened 2 days later. Marcus, my boyfriend, called me from work sounding weird, hesitant. "Did you tell your family where I work?" "Number why?" Lola called my office. She told HR she was your sister and said you've been mentally unstable lately, that you're under a lot of stress and might need leave. I couldn't breathe. She tried to sabotage my job. The one thing they hadn't taken from me. The thing that gave me purpose, security, independence. I felt something crack in me then. And this time, it wasn't quiet. She crossed a line I didn't even know existed. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about the house, or the money, or even being the scapegoat. This was war, and I was done playing nice. It's weird how silence can feel louder than screaming. After Lola tried to sabotage my job, my actual career, I went numb for a bit. Not sad, not angry, just cold. Like something inside me shut off, maybe for good. I didn't confront her. I didn't send a furious text. I didn't even block her. I just went quiet. Because here's the thing. When someone shows you they're willing to destroy you just to stay comfortable, there's nothing left to talk about. I doubled down. I met with Amanda Chen, a lawyer my therapist recommended. She sat across from me in her downtown office, flipping through my paperwork with a frown that deepened the more she read. "You've been paying this mortgage out of pocket for 2 years?" I nodded. "And you're not on the deed, title, nothing?" "Nope, not even as a cosigner." She let out a breath. "Legally, you're in the clear. You owe them nothing, but I'm guessing they're going to try to spin this as abandonment, financial neglect, maybe even emotional blackmail if they get desperate." "They already did," I said quietly, pulling out my phone. I showed her the lockout text, the mortgage receipts, even Lola's voicemail after she called my job. Amanda's eyebrows practically hit her hairline. "This isn't just family dysfunction," she said. "This is targeted manipulation. You've become their plan B." And when plan B grew a spine, they panicked. She paused, then asked gently, "Do you want to go after them legally?" "No," I said. "I just want out. I want peace." "Well, then step 1 is cutting the last thread. No more contact. You don't owe them anything." That night, I blocked every number except Aunt Eva. She was the only one who hadn't picked a side. At least not yet. I focused on work, on therapy, on sleeping through the night without waking up in cold sweats. It wasn't easy, but the distance helped. Until 2 weeks later, I got the message that broke the silence. And with it, whatever patience I had left. It was a screenshot. Aunt Eva had accidentally forwarded a family group chat meant to exclude me. In it, Lola wrote, She's going to come crawling back. She always does. Let her taste what it's like to be left out for once. We'll let her resume payments after the foreclosure notice comes. By then, she'll be desperate. And my mom responded with a thumbs up emoji. My dad added, "We raised a strong girl. She'll get over it." Let me be clear, they were planning to break me, counting on it, scheduling my collapse like a utility bill. I sat there for 10 minutes just staring at the screen. My hands were shaking so badly I had to put the phone down. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a resource, a fallback, and they had no idea I already had the next step in motion. You see, what I hadn't told anyone, not even Marcus, was that the house, it wasn't in just my parents' name. It was originally in my grandparents' trust. And while my parents were the primary beneficiaries, there was a clause my lawyer had dug up 2 weeks ago. In the event of neglect, financial or otherwise, by the primary beneficiaries toward the other named parties, asset reevaluation may be requested by a legal claimant with proof of contribution exceeding 18 consecutive months. That claimant was me. And that one thing they overlooked was that the trust hadn't been updated since before my grandparents passed. And I was still a named party. I filed the reevaluation claim that same afternoon. They wanted to shut me out? Good, because now they'd have to answer for every dollar. I used to think revenge meant screaming, storming out, slamming doors. But real revenge? The kind that settles deep in your bones? It's quiet, it's calculated, and it's done with a smile. The morning after I filed the trust reevaluation, I slept like a baby for the first time in months. No nightmares, no cold sweats, just peace. But I knew it wouldn't last. And I was right. 3 days later, Aunt Eva called, whispering like she was afraid the curtains had ears. "They know," she said. "Your parents are freaking out. Lola's crying to everyone who'll listen, saying you're trying to steal the house." I almost laughed. Steal it? From who? The people who locked me out and called me unstable behind my back? Let's be honest. They weren't scared of losing the house. They were scared of losing control. I didn't respond. I let the silence work for me again. But inside, I was burning. Because even after everything, the mortgage, the betrayal, the lies, they still saw me as the problem, as the threat, as the villain. So I leaned in. Amanda, my attorney, was a beast in the best way. She'd already prepped the trust packet with my payment records, the lockout text, screenshots of the family chat. We even included a timeline of financial hardship they created while taking my money. "This isn't just a case of you being taken advantage of," she said, flipping through the file. "It's a pattern of financial coercion disguised as family obligation." Her words stayed with me. Financial coercion. I'd never said it out loud, but that's exactly what it was. They expected me to carry everything. And the second I hesitated, they called me heartless. So I decided to do the one thing they never expected. I went public. No, I didn't go viral on TikTok or air out dirty laundry on Facebook. I filed a formal complaint with the Family Trust Administrator, citing breach of fiduciary duty by my parents. That triggered an automatic freeze on any action involving the property, including refinancing, gifting, or transferring ownership. Lola's inheritance fantasy? Put on ice. And then came the bomb. 2 weeks after the freeze, Amanda called me at work. "Carla, you need to sit down." My stomach dropped. What happened? I dug deeper into the trust. There's a secondary clause tied to your grandparents' original will. It was meant to protect the house in case your parents misused it. If a breach is confirmed, control of the property doesn't just revert to the trust, it goes directly to the next named beneficiary. I blinked. Wait, who is the next named beneficiary? She paused. You. I felt the ground tilt under me. Me? You've been paying the mortgage for over 18 months, Amanda continued. You were locked out without due process. The trust views that as abandonment of shared interest. If the court agrees, the house would be reassigned to you as primary custodian. My heart pounded. So, I wouldn't just be able to stop foreclosure? She shook her head. Number, you'd own the house. I sat there, stunned. The house they stole from me. The house they said I didn't deserve. The house I sacrificed for. Silently, desperately, while they handed it to Lola like a party favor, was about to be legally mine. Not because I screamed, not because I begged, but because I stood my ground. I hadn't planned to take the house. But now it felt like justice wearing work boots. And the best part? They still had no idea what was coming. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. It came certified, bold black lettering stamped across the envelope. I signed for it with a weird mix of dread and satisfaction humming under my skin. I already knew what it said. Amanda had prepped me, but holding it in my hands, that made it real. The house was mine. Legally, fully, irrevocably. After 2 months of hearings, document reviews, and mediator calls, the trust board ruled that my financial contributions, combined with the proven emotional and physical lockout, qualified as grounds for sole reassignment of property. My parents were removed from the deed. Lola's name? Never even entered the discussion. When Amanda told me the ruling, I didn't jump for joy. I didn't cry. I just sat still and let the weight of it settle. Because it wasn't about the house. Not really. It was about finally being seen. But if I thought that would be the end of it, I should have known better. The next Sunday, Aunt Eva called. They're planning to show up at the house, all of them. Your mom's saying you stole her future. Lola's threatening to go to the press. Just be ready. I didn't respond right away. I looked out my apartment window at the house across the street where kids were playing in sprinklers. For a second, I wondered if I should just sell the place and start fresh somewhere else. Then I remembered every Sunday dinner I sat through, every time I was ignored, every check I wrote while biting my tongue. Number, they were going to face me. I drove to the house early the next morning, just before sunrise. I stood barefoot on the front porch, coffee in hand, watching the sun light up the lawn I used to mow in middle school. It felt strange, familiar, but different. At 10:03 a.m., the sedan pulled up. Then Lola's SUV. Then a third car, a silver Lexus I didn't recognize. My guess? A friend they brought along as a witness in case I snapped. They came up the walk in a cluster, Mom holding her purse like a shield, Dad already red in the face, Lola with her sunglasses pushed up like a visor, jaw set like she was ready to go to war. You have 5 minutes, I said, stepping aside but not inviting them in. This is absurd, my dad barked. You manipulated the system. This house wasn't meant for you. You mean the one I paid for? I replied calmly. For 2 years, while you lied to me and changed the locks? Lola scoffed. You act like that gives you a right to everything. No, I said. It gave me the right to walk away. Everything else? That came from your choices. My mom looked close to tears. We're your family. And you treated me like a stranger, I answered. No, worse, like an ATM. There was a silence that stretched just a second too long. And then, the twist. I pulled a folded envelope from my back pocket and handed it to them. This is a formal trespass notice. Any attempt to enter this property again will result in legal action. Lola's mouth fell open. You're kicking us out, like criminals? No, I said. I'm holding you accountable, something none of you have ever had to be. My dad lunged forward like he wanted to argue, but Mom put a hand on his arm. Her face was pale, defeated. She knew this wasn't a bluff. I stepped back and shut the door. That was the last time I saw them in person. The house has been quiet since then. Peaceful. I haven't decided whether I'll keep it or sell. Right now, I'm just enjoying the silence. The kind that doesn't feel threatening, but safe. And honestly, the biggest surprise of all is how little I need them now. After everything, I've realized something. Closure isn't always a hug or an apology. Sometimes it's just locking your own damn door. Lesson? If you keep giving pieces of yourself to people who only take, eventually you look around and realize there's nothing left. I thought standing up for myself meant burning bridges. Turns out it meant building better ones, with people who respect me. If you've been through something similar, if you've ever had to cut off people you thought were permanent, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. How did you find your strength again? And hey, if this story hit home for you, feel free to stick around. Sometimes healing looks like this: messy, angry, and quietly powerful. Thanks for listening.